The following video has been made available with closed captions for the hard of hearing and in described video for the visually impaired. Please visit the description below for more details. In 2011, smartphones really started taking off. The iPhone 4 was released and that was obviously a big deal. Following that, the iPhone inspired many other phone brands that tried to make a name for themselves and match the capabilities, reputation, and identity of the iPhone. Companies then didn't really know how to make a good phone, and phones came in just about every flavor of the rainbow. Back then, there were still around 4 mobile operating systems in the running, and everything was in flux. It is then that we find the release of this product. This phone, the Samsung Galaxy Ace GTS 5830D, running Android 2.3 Gingerbread, was bought for a teenager heading into high school in 2011. Going into high school is a pretty exciting time, and getting a first phone is an event of certain emancipation for many. However, to think of this plastic brick as exciting is hard to imagine, to say the least. Its fully black body with cheap chrome accents are uninspiring. It did come with a replaceable white backplate if you ever got tired of black, so I'll give it that, but apart from the tacky build, it bears a striking resemblance to that of a new iPhone of that time, the iPhone 4, which I suppose would make sense. Samsung did used to have quite the reputation of copying Apple's homework. I think not many people would notice it now because all our phones today look more alike with each release. But back when there was more contrast, it was easy to notice the similarities. They have the same volume button location, the same headphone jack location, the same screen size, the same home button, the camera was in the same location, and more or less the micro SD card slot is where the SIM card would be for the iPhone. It somehow takes Apple's striking design and dulls it down to a crayon. It did have some features that separate it from the iPhone, like the additional capacitive buttons on either side of the home button, and the removable back was nice, I guess, but the feel in the hand and general size is unmistakable. I don't have an iPhone 4 for comparison, but I do have an iPhone 5, which is a bit taller, has had its headphone jack moved to the bottom, and is slightly thinner. So if this phone is so unremarkable, why are we even talking about it? We often view situations in a vacuum. Sometimes it helps us, but we have to understand that it is often too easy to take things out of context. For one, this phone was bought in Loblaws, a chain of grocery stores in Canada. This phone was bought in a grocery store. It was also bought by a parent for their child, albeit a growing child. They chose this phone because it was cheap, so little would be lost if it were lost. It doesn't need to be complicated. Sometimes choices make it more difficult to decide, and too many features confuse users. This phone isn't meant to stand out. It's meant to offer a good price for people who simply don't care, and sometimes we need to accept that. Sometimes as designers we must design something that is boring, because boring sells. Sometimes being boring also means blending in, and by extension looking like everything else. So then, what do we make of this graham cracker of a phone? Where does it belong? The Samsung Galaxy Ace isn't meant for the person who does research on the specs prior to buying a phone at Future Shop. It isn't meant to inspire a new generation of enthusiasts. It works, and that's all that matters. In fact, the user wouldn't even know what the phone was called if everything went according to plan and the phone worked perfectly. And there's nothing wrong with that. To that standard, the fact that it works now is a testament to how successful it is. In the example of this phone, it was able to be successful because of how boring it is. Sometimes we need to appreciate the more ordinary things in life, especially in an era where everything is changing. In understanding this phone, we know not everything can stand out, or else things that want to stand out will start blending in. So some of you may be wondering how it's holding up now. Well, Google Play doesn't really work. Not that anything would support Android 2.3, the Wi-Fi is a bit wonky, the browser is too old to do anything meaningful, but the phone does text and call. The radio is nice to have, and it works well as an MP3 player if you put a micro SD card in it. The camera is also good enough that you can identify what you're shooting at with enough light. However, the battery is the most obvious of all the problems it has. The phone requires life support in the form of a micro USB cable. The battery is cheap and easy to replace, which is nice, but the phone is at its end of its life. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Mobile Museum. We will be releasing the next episode exactly 1 week from now, so stay tuned. Subscribe for free if you'd like to be notified as well.